More headlines out of Chicago that splashing on the news pages, and not pretty. Last week, we talked about the record number of law enforcement officers shot across the United States, and including, I forgot to mention this, but we had that Illinois State police officer that was shot in Springfield by a murder suspect coming down from Chicago. But you have two Chicago police officers that were killed in the line of duty last year. Well, another officer shot, and talked with William Kelly, a reporter out of Chicago, about that earlier this morning, and got his sentiments of what's going on the ground there. Here's what he had to say he woke up to this morning.
I woke up this morning, Greg, to helicopters, which is you don't need an alarm clock in Chicago. You've got sirens, you've got helicopters, and sure enough, a police officer was shot in the Gold Coast. Apparently, he was trying to prevent, and this is a story that I'm going to run out and cover as soon as we're done here. A crash and grab at the Prada store. Okay, so this is what is happening every day in Chicago. Mayor Johnson says that there is a solution, one word solution, Greg: reparations. He believes that if we give violent criminals reparations for slavery, they will stop the armed robberies. This is an odd admission of racism on his part. The obvious admission being that the victims of these crimes are white and that they are being targeted because of their race.
So again, talking with William Kelly earlier this morning, and of course, the number of police officers shot. How is that going to ultimately change some minds?
Well, the number of police officers has been down by, I think, over 1,000 for years now. That does not appear to be changing in the right direction, but apparently Governor Pritzker has a solution for that. A bill or a law just went into effect January 1st to allow non-citizens, migrants, to become police officers. Now, this I've talked to many citizens in the city of Chicago, including citizens of color, Hispanic in particular, and they are not happy with this idea. They do not think that this is a good idea. Every single day we click on refresh the screen, we see migrants that are involved in any manner of crimes. They're being given court dates. It is yet to be seen if they are showing up for any of these court dates. But another disturbing, I guess, story that we're hearing is that migrants are swapping out their identities. Now, I don't know how many identities you have, Greg. I have one that I've tried very hard in my life to honor and respect. It happens to be, my father's name on top of it. He was a Chicago public school principal, so he did a very good job of maintaining that identity. But apparently migrants have a superpower of multiple identities, Greg.
So again, when I chatted with William Kelly earlier this morning, we talked about the police officer that was shot and the news he got on that, how it's impacting recruitment in the city of Chicago. But what about the ongoing migrant crisis? You've got 18 executive disaster proclamations being made, and doesn't seem to, really provide for a fair amount of oversight of how those tax dollars are being spent. What's this look like on the ground in Chicago? Again, William Kelly from earlier this morning when I chatted with him.
Oof. Well, sadly, we don't see any accountability for any of this spending. Mayor Johnson just announced that he was going to free up millions of dollars in COVID money to spend on migrants. COVID money that many of the Chicago City aldermen didn't even know existed, and certainly didn't know that you could just use that money for any crisis that comes along. It really is something that is unsustainable in the city of Chicago. There's really no plan. There's no accountability. Buses are arriving every single day, and this is a kind of an odd footnote to this. They're arriving in the suburbs now. including the suburb of Western Springs, which as a kid growing up on the south side of Chicago, I always thought of Western Springs as the hinterlands, Greg, where, the Disney princes and princesses, frolicked or something like this. The mayor of Western Springs had a sign in her front lawn, on her front lawn, that said, "All are welcome, all is love. We love science." But that sign has apparently disappeared overnight. It's gone, and now she's saying that the buses of migrants that are being dropped off at her doorstep need to go straight to Chicago, Greg.
What about, I guess, the ongoing sentiments from those on the streets in Chicago? Are we going to see a political sea change? Something I asked William Kelly earlier this morning.
Well, it is a one-party city and state, as you know, Greg. I mean, if if Pritzker wanted to pass a law tomorrow that all men who go on the Greg Bishop show wearing a blue tie are immediately felons, he could pass that law, and it would pass unanimously, probably with Republican support. So, there doesn't seem to be the kind of leadership that is making my fellow citizens feel safe. In societies where leaders care about their citizens, they have mandatory, believe it or not, gun training. Like in Israel, for example, citizens are required to learn how to operate a gun, to own a gun, to carry a gun. In Illinois, we have violent repeat offenders who are out on gun charges, awaiting trial, and they're right back out on the street posing on social media with assault weapons with extended magazines. Yet our governor is saying that the law-abiding citizens need to somehow have their gun rights restricted. 911 calls in the city of Chicago, Greg, are not being responded to. Imagine someone is kicking your door in. You have somehow had your gun rights restricted. You call 911, there's no answer. Maybe the police arrive in an hour or two. That is what we're dealing with in the city of Chicago right now, Greg.
So I want to thank William Kelly for joining me to talk about what's going on in Chicago with the migrant situation, with the police and law and order situation. Clearly, we'll check back in with him next week to see if much has changed, if anything. So that's what I got for you here with Bishop on Air. Greatly appreciate you guys taking time with us each and every weekday morning. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share the stories with your friends. Follow me on X throughout the day, and you'll be able to stay plugged in to what's going on in the news cycle when it comes to these and other issues.